watch in the comments. If you believe it, give me a thumbs up. If you don't believe it, give me a thumbs down. So if you are just joining the live, I am Danielle. I am a lawyer in real life. I don't play one on television. I am a practicing attorney in Metro Atlanta. So here on TikTok, I create content that breaks down legal cases. I'm on TikTok and YouTube where I break down legal cases, talk about political controversy and social issues. So I am glad y'all are here tonight, and we are going to talk about what is going on with the lawsuit that was filed by the president of France and the first lady of France. They have sued Candace Owens. And we are going to talk about why she has sued, why they have sued her. I have read the complaint. I made a video last week. It's been viewed over 700,000 times, and it's racked up nearly 4,000 comments. Half those comments were telling me you've got to watch the Becoming Brigitte series. So I have started watching the series. So I am on episode 3 of the series right now, and I have lots of thoughts after watching the first 3. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to talk about this series. So I've only watched 1 through 3. So I'm going to contain my comments to 1 through 3 since I haven't watched the entire series yet. But I want to know, so I asked everyone if you have watched the series to put watch in the comments. If you have not watched, put curious. If you're curious, if you never plan to watch, you can put never in the comments. If you believe what Candace is saying, give me a thumbs up. If you don't believe it, give me a thumbs down. So we have someone who is from France who's here, and she says she believes it, and I'm really interested in knowing why she believes it. We have K8E, we have Joy Smith, 68, they all believe it. We have Truth Seeker, 2 thumbs downs. We have Moose, 215 has a thumbs up. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about it from a legal perspective as well as from a just cultural perspective. So if y'all have questions, you have comments, go ahead and join the chat. So I'm going to be responding. Like I said, I am on YouTube Live. Hi, YouTube. I'm on YouTube Live, and I'm also on TikTok. So there are fewer people over on YouTube, so I can see your questions more easily there. But I will be checking the chat in both places. So let's talk about this. So I am ready to get into this. So I see there is a combination of people who have watched, people who believe it, people who don't believe it. So let's get into this, especially for the people who have watched the series. So if you have watched the series, then you kind of have you have a level, you have a knowledge of where Candace is coming from. So let's start with the introduction, her introduction that she did for her series. So when in the introduction, she talks about receiving a letter from the Macron's attorneys in December. I believe it was December 3rd of 2024. They sent her a letter that's apparently over 100 pages. She has not published the letter, so we don't know exactly what it says, but she talks about it. in her series. So in the introduction, she says she received a letter from the Macrons threatening to sue her. So this is before the lawsuit is actually filed, and this is at the beginning of her very first docu-series about Brigitte. Hey, K-Ty, thanks for being here. If you have watched the Becoming Brigitte series, put watched in the chat. If you haven't watched, put curious. If you think it's true, give me a thumbs up. If you think it's not true, give me a thumbs down. So in the introduction, she says that she received this letter from them, over 100 pages, and I'm wondering, what did they say in 100 pages? So I am an attorney. I send demand letters to potential defendants all the time, people we are possibly going to see. And sometimes our demand letters are very long, but when they are long, it's because they have like medical records, those type of things attached. And I'm wondering, what did they attach that was 100 pages long? All right, Universal Awareness says thumbs down. Two Wicked Rest says thumbs up. Okay, so we're even over here on YouTube. So I was wondering, what did they say in this letter? So they must have known she was about to start this docu-series, and obviously they were trying to prevent her from doing it. Well, it was not successful. We know she did the docu-series, and we know that it has got millions, literally millions of views. But she then had a letter of questions that she sent to Brigitte Macron's attorneys. And those questions she displayed in her introduction. And she continued to display them, various times. And those questions, I didn't realize at the time, kind of formed the basis for what her beliefs are around whether Brigitte Macron is transgender. So one thing you need to know about her series, it talks a lot about PDF. Everybody knows what I mean when I say PDF. It talks a lot about PDF. It talks a lot about kind of the Macron's backstory and their origin story. So everybody probably know that their relationship started when he was very young, inappropriately young. In the US, it would be illegally young. So in the US, under any circumstances, an adult cannot be involved with someone who's 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. I understand that in France, and the person from France can tell me, at that time, you could have a relationship with someone who is young, but not if you were a teacher. So the way they met is through his high school. Brigitte was teaching at his high school. He was in a play, and in the complaint that they filed, they say that they formed a deep intellectual connection. So I'm wondering, what type of deep intellectual connection does a 39-year-old woman form with a 15-year-old boy? That has me baffled. What kind of deep intellectual connection? And somebody in the chat is saying he was 29 when he married her, though, and we're apart for years. That is true, but there's no getting around the fact that the relationship started when he was a teenager. And in Candace Owens' Becoming Brigitte, she talks about that extensively. Nearly every single episode I've seen so far, that has come up. Maybe not I don't think it's come up in episode 3, But in all the preceding episodes, she is stressing the fact that this relationship started when he was very young. And actually, in episode 3, she does talk about it also. And that, in my opinion, that is what is driving this whole idea that she is transgender. It has more to do about the cultural, about the idea that Brigitte is a PDF. I think that has a lot to do with this. So she talks extensively about that. But one of the things I will say, like from the very beginning, she was kind of general in how she talked about what was happening. I think in her introduction is when she came closest to making statements like she is a transgender. But if you watch it in the subsequent episodes, Candace does not say that. I think she becomes a lot more careful after she received the letters from the Macron's attorney. She becomes a lot more careful. But she said, but according to the lawsuit, this is not even Candace. So I'm saying this because these are, in my opinion, facts now, because this is their lawsuit, and these are the things that they said in their lawsuit. And in their lawsuit, in the introduction, they, at the very beginning, say that they don't say his age. They talk about the time frame, but they don't say his age. They say that he was in high school and that they formed this deep intellectual relationship. And then they talk about the facts without saying it directly. They say, so this is what the lawsuit says. It says President Macron attended La Providence, a Jesuit high school in Amiens, where he first met Brigitte Macron, a French drama teacher. At the time, Ms. Macron was an accomplished educator and mother of 3. So in their complaint, they are very clear. They say at the very beginning, Brigitte Macron is a woman. They say that she is the biological mother of 3 children. So they are putting these things in their complaint. And when Candace answers the complaint, she has to say, deny, admit, or she has to say she's without enough information to deny or admit. So it'll be interesting when she answers this lawsuit, because how she answers the lawsuit is going to be very important. But they admit at the very beginning, they say that on April, hold on, let me go back to the lawsuit. They said that through the school's theater program, President Macron and Mrs. Macron formed a deeper intellectual connection. During a school production of Jacques and his master, President Macron played the lead role under Miss Macron's direction. He later undertook an ambitious rewrite of another play, The Art of Comedy, to create roles for more students. Miss Macron agreed to guide him, and the two began regularly to collaborate on the project. So I guess that's when their relationship was kind of starting. Now, somebody is saying that Ty is saying that several of his teachers have talked about how intelligent he was and did not interact with the other students as well as adults. Okay, so maybe he was attracted to her because she was an adult. I can understand. And Nee in 71, who is in France, is saying that because she was his teacher in France, it's forbidden to have that type of relationship under the age of 18. So that's good to know. I would hope it's illegal in France because there's such a difference in power. But hey, this is what happened. So in the complaint, they say at all times, the teacher-student relationship between Mrs. Macron and President Macron remain within the bounds of the law. Okay? Remains within the bounds of the law. So it does not say they didn't have a relationship. It says it remains within the bounds of the law. So whenever I read complaints, they are typically worded very carefully, because one day you will have to defend everything you put in the complaint. So if they said it remained within the bounds of the law, to me, that is not saying they did not have a relationship. That is saying, to me, it sounds like they're parsing the words to say that, okay, the relationship was legal, the relationship was within the bounds of the law, but something may have been going on. So we don't know those details yet. But if this lawsuit continues, we very well may learn those details. I don't know if the Macrons are really ready for how invasive and intrusive lawsuits in the United States can be, because the discovery process is very broad. You can ask people in discovery questions that are not that may not lead to admissible evidence. But because the discovery process is so broad, you get to ask a lot of questions. And I don't know if they're ready for what is going to be allowed in the United States. Okay, so going back to the complaint, they say it remained within the bounds of the law, but when President Macron's parents became aware of his strong feelings for his teacher, they decided to transfer him to a school in Paris. Miss Macron encouraged him to leave and was confident he would fall in love with a peer. So is she saying he was in love with her? That he was going to fall out of love with her and fall in love with a peer? That's how I'm reading it. Yet before his departure, he told her, whatever you do, I will marry you. So he was like, you are mine, and I'm not letting you go. So that's how they're framing the relationship. Okay, if that's how they're framing the relationship, and we know that later on, when he is in his 20s, he does marry this woman, do y'all think that even today we should be talking about she was manipulating him, she was grooming him? So we're able to see where the relationship went, what happened. So is it fair for us to still be saying today that this is an abusive relationship? She abused him, she's still abusing him, she's grooming him. Okay, so I see y'all saying absolutely. I see y'all saying that. So I see people saying, what does this have to do with whether or not she's transgender? Y'all, I don't know what it has to do with whether or not she's transgender. I'm just telling you what the complaint says, and then we're going to talk about what Candace is saying in her series. So I don't know. We have over here, we have the fact that they started their relationship. I'm going to say they started their relationship in an inappropriate, possibly illegal way. So I'm going to say that. So we have that over here. And over here, we have this claim that she's transgender. I don't know how they come together. Do they come together? I don't know. I don't think they come together. I think they kind of cross each other. But the way Candace is making it sound, they're connected. Like, one has something to do with the other. So, but because the Macrons are saying this in their lawsuit, we can take this as truth. Now, what Candace says on her docuseries, that is not truth, guys. That is not truth. And we'll get into some of the stuff she's saying. But let me just take a minute to say, if you don't follow me, please give me a follow. I appreciate it. I saw that there were some gifts over here on the TikTok side. Thank you very much for the gifts. I appreciate it. But if you don't follow me, please give me a follow. I do legal commentary about legal issues, lawsuits that come up in the public. So, and if you're on YouTube, please give me a follow. I'm definitely trying to build my YouTube audience. I don't know what's going to happen after September over on the TikTok. So I want to make sure I have my audience over on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, please give me a follow. I'm a lawyer in real life. That's my name on YouTube. Okay, so I'm looking at some of the comments, and I'm going to get to some of these comments. Especially, there's a comment that we have to remember. Candace is reporting on Xavier Poussard's book, Becoming Brigitte, and all the other writers who have tried to do biographies. And that's a good point, a very good point and salient point for how she's probably going to defend herself in this lawsuit. Somebody said there's a bad echo. Hold on. I had a microphone on, and that microphone may be causing an echo. So tell me if that's better. So tell me if the volume is better. If you can hear me better, if that echo is gone. Okay, it went out and back in. Okay, so I unplugged the microphone that I was using. Some people are saying they don't hear an echo. Some people say we're hearing. Hey, Easy. I see some people come into my lives all the time. Nice to see you. Okay, so we know how this relationship started. And it says over the years, President Macron and Mrs. Macron kept in touch and their love deepened. Okay, so their love deepened. So before they were putting it all on him, now they're saying, they were both in love. And also to me, it kind of hints that there may have been an affair. There may have been a relationship going on. Now, in the United States of America, you have put this in your complaint. If I am taking your deposition, I can and I will ask you questions about this. You have just opened yourself up to that. So I don't know if the Macrons knew that, but they are about to find out that here we are intrusive. I have the impression that in France, it's what you can do and what you can ask and how you can prosecute these claims is more limited. But here, it's a lot. So in 2006, Miss Macron divorced her first husband, and in 2007, she married President Macron. Their relationship has remained strong and supportive, marked by a deep intellectual partnership. So that's what they say about their relationship. Now, in the complaint, at the very beginning of the allegations, they say that Mrs. Macron, the First Lady, Brigitte Trogno, she is a woman. They put that out there. As a plaintiff in a lawsuit in the United States, you have to prove your case. Candace doesn't have to prove nothing. Candace doesn't even have to say anything. She can put up no evidence. She doesn't have to produce anything. It is on the Macrons. They say in their lawsuits that she is a woman, that she is the youngest of 6 children from a prominent chocolate-making family in Owens. An image of her birth announcement and family photo featuring Miss Macron as a child is below. Have y'all seen that? Have y'all seen the birth announcement, first of all? Because there was a birth announcement. See, I see people saying weird family, and I want to know why, because honestly, I haven't heard anything that's that weird about her family. Um, so some Julie Michelle is saying that there's an interview from France with a French lawyer, and it's almost a fact that she was a man. Okay, I haven't seen that, and I find it very strange that a lawyer there would be saying that. Well, hi. Well, Kate, hi. I'm so glad you found me. I am in Atlanta, Georgia. I am in Atlanta, Georgia. But have y'all seen the birth announcement? It is a birth announcement that says it names all of her siblings in the birth announcement. I don't speak French, but I have seen that this was translated elsewhere, so I know what it says. Yep, the chef next door. This was announced in the newspaper at the time. So, the day when she was born back in 1953. So we know nobody was trying to lay the foundation for her to become transgender in 1953 when she was born. But the announcement says Anne Marie, Jean Claude, Mary Vaughn, Monique, and Jean-Michel Trudeau. So they just named all her siblings. They named Jean-Michel, who becomes important in this story because people claim that Brigitte is actually Jean-Michel. So we know that there was actually a child born named Brigitte Trudeau. We know that. I don't think does anybody dispute that? If you dispute it, say, I dispute it. Put it in the comments. If you dispute that there was a child born named Brigitte Trudeau, put I dispute it. I see people are saying, I think Jean-Michel is Brigitte. Okay, I understand that's the theory. That's Candace's theory. But we're just talking about this birth announcement. Does anybody think somebody faked this birth announcement from 1953? So, and there's also a picture of a child who is said to be Brigitte Trudeau in the lap of her mother, surrounded by her 5 siblings, including Jean-Michel. So, according to Candace in her series, she says that when this picture was published, that people started looking at the picture and they were like, that looks like Brigitte. That little boy in that picture, that looks like Brigitte. And the way Candace says these things, particularly starting in episode 1, Candace does not say, I think she's transgender. I know she said that in the past, but after she received that letter from the Macron's attorney in December, and after she went live with her first episode in January of 2025, she received a second letter, and I believe that one was dated February 3rd. And the way she started talking about this story in her series, to me, it changed very subtly. And she started saying, this journalist, Xavier Poussard, said this. Natasha, she started talking about other well-known journalists who were writing stories about the Macrons. So she made sure, in my opinion, she is making sure she does not defame her in this series. So Candace says when this picture came out, people, she says people, they, the French public, started questioning, is this Jean-Michel? He looks like Brigitte, according to Candace. Somebody says Brigitte was real, but she passed. Jean-Michel stole her identity. When did she pass? Tell me when she passed. Because if France is anything like the United States of America, you are able to document certain events in people's lives, when they went to school, when they graduated from school. Every death is documented. And we know that there is another picture of Brigitte Trudeau as a child when she took her first Holy Communion. Now, I grew up Catholic, but I cannot for the life of me remember what age you take communion. If somebody's Catholic, tell me the approximate age. And if you're in France, and I see people saying the name is pronounced Brigitte, I pronounce it Brigitte. I know that, Brigitte, Bridget, Brigitte. I've seen it all. And for me, it just is what it is. I know y'all don't care about how people pronounce their names anyways. But if you are Catholic, particularly in France, at what age do you usually take First Holy Communion? So I think it's probably about 8 years old. So there is a picture of Brigitte taking in her first Holy Communion white dress. That's significant because Candace says in her series that the picture is not edited, it's not recolorized, and that the person in the picture is not deceased. So she says that in her series, and she says it in response to the letter that she received from the Macrons threatening to sue her. So she says that in her letter. Now, I have not gotten to the point yet where she explains who that person is in that communion picture, but maybe she does. So that was proven it wasn't her. Okay, Tina Marie, what was proven it wasn't her? Tell me, what was proven? Because I will tell y'all right now, as I'm watching the series, as I'm watching Candace's series, and I'm on episode 3, I am not hearing her say, this has been proven. Not at all. What she is saying, isn't this a coincidence? I wonder why this is. Isn't this strange? They're weird. Why would they do this? Just like she's musing, she's asking questions, but she is not saying the little girl in the communion picture, that's not Brigitte Trudeau, Macron. She is not saying that at all. And in fact, I know y'all saw the wedding picture, right? So the wedding picture that was produced, that was supposed to be Brigitte from her first marriage to Andre Louise. She says in episode 3 that there is a marriage certificate that has the name of Brigitte. What's her name? I can't remember her last name. A picture of Brigitte. There's a marriage license that has the name of Brigitte and her first husband, Andre Louis Azur. And Michael, Jean-Michel, her brother that everybody says she is really Brigitte today, was the best man in the wedding. So how do y'all account for that? I mean, just tell me in the comments, how do you account for a marriage license, a certified marriage license that says Andre Louise married Brigitte Trudeau? Why? I don't know why I keep saying Trudeau married Brigitte Macron, and her brother Jean-Louis was in the wedding as the best man. So we're talking about 3 different people who are accounted for at her wedding. So how do you account for that? So tell me now, Candace says in episode 3, when she looks at that wedding picture, she's like, that doesn't look like the Brigitte Macron that we know today. Is that really Brigitte? That's what she says, but people change. What I look like at age 23 is very different from what I look like today. What I look like today, I might be different from what I look like tomorrow. What I look like over on my TikTok live is very different from what I'm looking like on this YouTube live. TikTok gives you filters. You can look up very different. And Candace says to her, they don't look like the same person. But I don't think that means anything. You guys can tell me what you think, but I don't think it means anything. So I'm looking at the comments over here. Jean-Michel, yes, Candace did say initially she would bet her career on this. But once the series started and she started getting those letters from the Macron's attorneys, her language changed. She stopped being that bold and assertive with her statements. If you watch series episodes 1, I'm up to 3, Candace does not say anything close to that in those episodes, which for her part is smart because she was aware that a lawsuit was coming and she started preparing. And so she started saying, oh, people have reported on this. This journalist wrote this about them. The people were wondering why. In Xavier Poussard's book, those things I think are acceptable ways of discussing what she's saying without it becoming defamatory. And so so let's I think her language changed. So Grand Duchess said I look great on both platforms. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Right. So Carlos 99 says she was expressing her opinion, and I agree. What she is saying in episodes 1 through 3, because I'm just up to 3, she is expressing her opinion. She's asking questions. She is not saying, in my opinion, defamatory things. So, and if so an example of what's defamatory versus what's acceptable. So if I were to say, the mayor of my town is corrupt. The mayor of my town is corrupt. Okay, that's my opinion. You can't sue me because I said the mayor of my town is corrupt. But if I said the mayor of my town stole $10,000, that's different. That's something that's factual. It's not an opinion. I'm saying he did something concrete. Now, if that's not true, he can potentially sue me for defamation because he can prove if I can't prove that it's the truth, then I could be sued for defamation. So there's a different standard for somebody who's in the public eye, like the president of France, but I could potentially be sued. And what she's doing in her series 1 through 3, she is being careful in how she talks about this. She is not saying Brigitte is a man. That has changed. She is saying, isn't this interesting? Isn't this a coincidence? So some of the things that she talks about are interesting, and some of them that are some of the things that she says are interesting and coincidences. And let me address this. So Sam is saying in French defamation law, even allegations made in doubtful form can be defamation. Okay, America is a little different. In America, you can express your opinion. You just can't make factual claims about individuals that are not true. But I can express my opinion all I want. So tell me, in France, can I say, I think this politician is corrupt? Tell me if that's considered defamation in France. because I can say, this is what I can say. I think she looks like a man. I think she's masculine. I think she behaves in a very masculine, non-feminine way. I can say those things. Those are my opinions. But I didn't say she's a man, she's transgender. She was born biologically male. So y'all tell me, y'all tell me if in France, if those things would be considered defamatory. So people are asking where Brigitte was born, the school she attended, her classmate, neighbors from 2 to 10. I suspect in this lawsuit. So, and let's just step back just a little bit. The law firm that is suing Brigitte is the law firm that got the 700 million plus settlement from Fox News. They are a well-known law firm known for bringing these type of lawsuits. They are in Delaware. So she is being sued in Delaware because the law in a lot of businesses incorporate in Delaware. The judges there are very familiar with handling these types of cases. The fact that they are dealing with people who are celebrities is not going to sway them in the least, because in Delaware, you have lots of businesses that are incorporated there. You have a lot of lawsuits against big businesses there. So the judges are going to be able to handle the cases. They're not going to be swayed or impressed that it is the president of France or somebody like Candace Owens. And I'm going to say Delaware is a much better jurisdiction for the Macrons than Tennessee. It's not going to be as conservative as Tennessee. I'm not saying Delaware is ultra liberal, but I'm saying it's not going to be as conservative, because I can imagine that my fellow Southerners probably believe what Candace is saying at a higher level than people outside of the South. Okay. So I'm just gonna, I think, in the South, I can say from my personal experience with the people who live in my household, we believe conspiracies, I think, at a higher rate than probably other people. So y'all can disagree with me about that if you like. Okay, so Sam is saying opinions framed as beliefs can be defamatory if they suggest an illegal act like corruption or fraud. So possibly, but I think opinions, the way Candace is framing it in her series is different. And I think she is aware of the line she cannot cross. And she is not crossing that line. Now, she may have crossed that line in the past. She may have done it before. But I think she's being careful right now, very careful. So, okay, let's go back to the things she's saying in the series. So, one of the things that she finds very suspicious is the fact that Jean-Michel, nobody knew about him, according to her. The public didn't know about him. They didn't know he existed. And the little boy in the picture looks like Brigitte does today. Yeah. So there's all this suspicion, according to her. Now, let's put this in context. Everybody does not want to be in the public eye. Everybody doesn't want to be out front. My kids do not allow me to put their photos or videotape them and put it on social media. That's just a place they don't want to go. They don't allow me to do it. So I am not convinced that just because the public didn't know about her brother didn't run for public office. Maybe her brother is shy. Maybe he doesn't want to be in the public. So I don't find that suspicious at all. to me, I'm like, why is that suspicious? And also, there's this whole thing she goes on about how Emmanuel Macron's family, like apparently he's estranged from them. In the series, she says that somebody asked his brother, "Oh, is that Macron guy kin to you?" And the brother was like, "No, that's my cousin." Didn't acknowledge that this powerful person was his brother, and this was before he became president of France. So those types of things to me is not convincing that there's something going on, that especially it's not especially not convincing that Jean-Michel is actually Brigitte Macron. And going back to the complaint, guys, I got the complaint right here on my iPad. Going back to the complaint, they have a picture of Jean-Michel and Brigitte Macron in the same frame. I'm going to the page where they have that. It's deep into the complaint. But hold on. Let's see. I think it's right here. Hold on. Number 2. Okay, so it says not only was Jean-Michel, okay, it says the December retraction demand. They're talking about the retraction letter. They sent Candace Owens a letter saying, retract this bullshit you talking about, or we're going to sue you. And she didn't retract. So they say the December retraction demand provided evidence that Jean-Michel has recently appeared in public. He attended President Macron's investitures in 2017 and 2022. And the December retraction demand provided links to publicly available videos from those events. Not only was Jean-Michel present, but also in the same frame as Mrs. Macron. Conclusive evidence that debunks Owens' demonstrably false claims. And in the complaint, I think because of y'all can't see it. Hold on, let me see. No, because of the light, I know you can't see it. Can anybody see this? Wait. Oh, there it is. Can you see it? Can y'all see that? Can y'all see that over here? This is the missing, the allegedly missing Jean-Michel. And they're going to show in this one, I think it's that one right there. That's Brigitte Macron and her brother in the same frame. Y'all see that? Y'all see that? Okay, so what do you think now? What you got to say now? What y'all got to say now about that? Yes, the little short chubby dude. That that's what somebody said. Don't sue me. Don't say I'm defaming him because I'm calling him a short chubby. But yes, that little short chubby dude, that is Jean-Michel Trogno. And he's in the same frame with Brigitte Macron. So I need to know. So I see people saying he is not Jean-Michel. That is just too easy to prove that it's not true. That is just too easy. And so also, if y'all want to go see this, they have a YouTube links here. They have the YouTube links where you can go check this out for yourself. And I'm going to tell y'all what those are. I'm going to try to hold it up. I keep moving. I don't know. Can y'all read this? Maybe I'll do a video and I'll put it in there. Can y'all read the, I don't know if you can read it, but if you can read it, it tells you where to go on YouTube. I'm going to try to copy and paste the link and I'm going to put it in a video. Somebody said, can I read it? Okay, so it says the video posted by B as in boy, F as in Frank, MTV at BFMTV, YouTube, live. Oh, damn, it's in French. Now y'all got me trying to hold on. Y'all got me trying to say this, and I can't say it right. Y'all already upset because I say Brigitte instead of Brigitte. Okay, so it says live passation, Passation, Dedepourvoir, Macron /Hollandais Hollande. So, and there is a link to this, and there's actually two. So I'm going to post it. In fact, over here on YouTube, I'm going to post it right now. And somebody tell me if this link is working. I'm posting it right now. .com. Hold on. Oh man, hold on one second. TikTok is making me verify I'm here. Okay, there we go. So I'm putting it in the chat. Watch. Hopefully I get it right, and somebody's going to go tell us if it is actually there, and tell us if they can see the little short guy, and tell us if he is in the same frame as Brigitte. Okay, let me make sure I got this right. Okay. JPSCNIO_U. Okay. So I just posted it over on my YouTube channel. Somebody go. As a lawyer, people would expect you to spell Candace correctly in your video title. I made a mistake. I'm so sorry. You know what? Lawyers make mistakes. Okay, ordinary person, I'm glad you said that, because there are so many people. Remember, we had this little election era. People were like, it doesn't matter. I'm going to call her whatever I want to call her, that person who was running. So somebody tell me if that link works. Somebody tell me if that link works. What, as a lawyer, what are the chances they would take on this lawsuit if they didn't have concrete proof? I say zero. There is no way this law firm would have taken on this case if they were not able to prove with 100% certainty that Brigitte Macron is, in fact, a woman. I would even venture to say they have already probably done the DNA test. I would say, let's get this DNA test done right now, so that when they ask, we already know the answer. So if FOMA says it's a whole 11 hours, the video. Now, they do not say where within that 11 hours that you can see this, but okay, so the video is there. If somebody wants to try to figure it out, if somebody wants to try to figure out where it is, you let us know. But anyways, in their lawsuit, they say that Jean-Michel, Brigitte Macron, they are in the same picture together, and this is proof that he does in fact exist. But what's really significant, somebody's calling me. Sorry about that. But what's really significant about that is that they sent Candace this letter on December 3rd. What their argument is going to be is that she knew the truth. She knew by December 3rd, when she received this letter, that there was proof that Jean-Michel was alive, that he could not be Brigitte Macron because they were in a video together. They were seen together. So that's going to be a problem for every time she said after December 3rd that Jean-Michel is not alive, that's who Brigitte is. That's going to be a problem. So we'll see how it all pans out, but that could be a problem for Candace. Um, but as she, so what are some of the other things she says are coincidence or problematic or make you wonder or weird? She also says it's weird that the first husband, that he is not, that you couldn't find pictures of him in the public, that he didn't come out and, say anything about their relationship. She says all of how he died. She in episode 3, she talks about how he died in December of 2019. He had a funeral within 4 days of his death. She said it was an express funeral. Now, I don't want to be offensive, but I grew up in the South. I have always believed that white people have funerals very quickly. Within 3 or 4 days, the funeral is done. Black people, it takes us a while to have funerals, for all kinds of reasons. So, and I'm like, 4 days? Is that unusual? I mean, somebody tell me, maybe I'm wrong. Is having a funeral within 4 days, is that really weird? Is that an express funeral? Now, if he was a black man, I would say, yeah, that's express. That's fast. Y'all putting somebody in the ground in 4 days, because usually it takes much longer. But according to Candace, that's unusual. That's an express funeral, and it's evidence that there was something weird about Jean Louise's death, because they buried him so quickly. And then she talks about the fact that one of his daughters said that he was buried, but according to her, he was actually cremated. So was he buried? Was he cremated? Why would the daughter say he was buried when he was actually cremated? And also the daughter got the death of his memorial service incorrect. And then the program for the memorial service has a picture that's not a very flattering picture. And apparently that's because they don't have very many pictures. Clarence Thomas. Right now we're talking about Candace Owens' series. So I'm talking about what she's saying in episodes 1, 2, and 3. So this is what she's saying. Somebody's saying I'm not making any sense. I may not be making any sense, but right now we're just talking about what the series says. And you're saying you watched it. Am I inaccurate? Am I not telling you what the series says and what she presents in the series? So y'all let me know. If I'm inaccurate, let me know. Thank you, Deja. Somebody's saying I'm making some sense, so thank you. But according to Candace, everything surrounding his death was weird. It's weird that the daughters can't say, she mistakenly said when his ceremony was. They don't have any pictures of him. Apparently, all the pictures are gone. And this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, I was married to this woman for 32 years, Brigitte. Brigitte didn't even go to the funeral. And again, Candace says, who does that? Who doesn't go to your ex-husband's funeral? Well, I'm saying I may not go if I cheated on this man with this young boy and divorced him. He probably didn't want her at his funeral. He probably didn't want to have anything else to do with her. That part makes perfect sense to me. But anyway, she says it's all weird. It's strange that she wouldn't go to the funeral. She claims that Emmanuel Macron was in some way involved with planning the funeral. She also says that and the way she says this is that people said, journalists reported, In Xavier Poussard's book, he writes, she's not saying these are my personal opinions. She is reporting on what other people are saying. Y'all see the difference, right? You see how she's phrasing these things. So somebody said you didn't even read the book. No, I'm telling you about the series that I've watched. So if I'm saying something incorrect from the series, let me know. Somebody says you don't think Brigitte is a man. No, I don't think she's a man. Not based on what I've seen so far. So I keep waiting for this smoking gun. I keep waiting for this evidence. I haven't heard evidence yet. So I'm on series. I'm on episode number 3. So maybe in 4, 5, 6, she's going to bring it, but so far she has not. So, and a private nobody is saying, I really wish I had reviewed the entire series. Okay, I'm going to come back. So I'm going to come back once I've finished, but I'm telling you what I'm thinking so far. And I've been making videos after each one. And I've been asking people who watch the videos to please, please let me know if they disagree with what I'm saying, because I'm not trying to make up what she says in the videos. I'm just trying to say this is what she said so far. And yes, I do include my personal analysis of what I think of it, but I'm definitely not trying to say change or alter in any way what Candace has said in the videos. And I know somebody is saying, there's going to be a part in that video, in one of the videos, where we see something in the bathing suit. I can't wait to get there. I can't wait to see it. But anyways, so what else? So she says the way he died was very suspicious. And also she says that his companion who was at the funeral said that he was planning to move to Africa, that he had emptied all of his accounts, that he had a ticket to go to Africa, and it was like it was in his jacket pocket, so he was getting ready to go. Now, of course, Candace doesn't say why she thinks that's suspicious, but she says it in such a way that makes you think, oh, were they doing something to him? Was he trying to run away? Was he afraid somebody was going to hurt him? That's the clear implication. What else? Oh, also they say about Andre Louise is that a journalist claimed that right before he passed away, before he died, he had been in a psychiatric facility. And he was like under lock and key, and there was a guard from the palace there to make sure he stayed in this facility. So again, that makes though somebody was restricting his freedom, somebody was trying to prevent him from maybe talking to people or moving around. That's the implication. The other big implication, or the really big thing in episode 3, is about his mother. So in episode 2, she kind of teased us, and she said, we're going to talk about his parents and their their professional lives. So in episode 3, she tells us that the mother worked for the Social Security Department in France. It sounds like it's the equivalent of our Social Security Administration or something similar. And so she says that okay, wait a minute, let me back up. Okay, at the very beginning of episode 3, she starts talking about his grandmother, how his grandmother raised him. And throughout all the episodes in the introduction that I have watched, it is a very big theme. All of them is the fact that Brigitte is a PDF because of how their relationship started, and that Emmanuel Macron himself was exposed to a lot of PDF material as a child. His favorite author is a admitted, acknowledged pederast. And yeah, very disturbing stuff. And he was, one of his other favorite books, I think it's called the oh my gosh, the El King, something King. It is a book, it's a, according to her, it's a strange book that makes children seem very intellectual, very mature. And apparently this is one of Macron's favorite books. And she says that the themes in that book played out in his life with his relationship with Brigitte. And so, according to her, these are books that children should not be exposed to, but his grandmother, who he loved, exposed him to these books. So that's a theme that's throughout all 4 hours that I have watched so far, all 4 of the series so far. He says that the grandmother dies, was reclusive, was very private. She was very reclusive. She died April 13th. Brigitte is born April 13th. And I'm like, why does that matter? And to me, the only thing I can really get from it is that it's like a made up date. Yes, the Earl King is that April 13th, maybe it's a made up date. And she also says a third thing happened on April 13th. And the CIA MK Ultra program was born on. Why was she says that the CIA program, and actually I just watched episode 3 again today, so I was like kind of writing notes so I could do my video. And let me go because I like to be accurate. Yes, The Earl King by Turner, very controversial book. Okay, so the MK Ultra program was a brainwashing program that the CIA created. And it was a program that brainwashed people. It used drugs like LSD to alter people's minds. It used sexual perversion by making soldiers do, I'm gonna say exactly, but making soldiers do very inappropriate things. And it was a program that tried to establish a Manchurian type candidate. So if y'all have ever watched the movie Manchurian Candidate, so it's like this sleeper candidate who can be controlled by the CIA or other people with very nefarious motives. And so she says that's what this program is. Now, I'm wondering, what does this have to do with this, thing, this whole series? What does it have to do? And for those who are kind of into this whole Candace thing and what she's talking about, tell me what it has to do with Emmanuel Macron. Because for somebody like me, it's a big leap. I think I know where she's trying to go, but it's a big leap. So y'all tell me what you think, where you think she's going with this. But so she talks about this program. Then she talks about Macron's alleged biological parents, and I think she uses the word alleged biological parents. President says it's a moon landing leap. Yeah, sort of like that. So the parents, and she talks about psychiatry, how Sigmund Freud, he is evil. He should not be in our schools. Kids should not learn about him. She says all these things, but she says that his father was a psychologist and the mother was a pediatrician. Then it is revealed that the mother assisted the president of the Intersexuality and hermaphrodism community. I think it's some kind of society. She assisted this man to change his sex. And this person gave this speech saying that the mother had given administrative support, that she had helped people significantly who were trying to undergo gender changes. And he was basically singing her praises. I can't remember if it was a man or a woman, but the person was singing her praises and was saying she was such a help to those people. And she had given them all this support. Now, at this point, Candace says, is this a coincidence? Is this a coincidence? I mean, so is it a coincidence? And I mean, is it just possible that his mother was a physician who believed in providing gender affirming care? And it has absolutely nothing to do with whether Brigitte Macron is transgender, because it does not prove anything. It proves absolutely nothing, in my opinion. In my opinion, it's just more speculation. So does it mean anything? Is it just a coincidence? And if it's not just a coincidence, to give me the proof that it's not just a coincidence. So I have not said this, but let's take a little break. And let me say, if you don't follow me, I appreciate a follow, especially over here on YouTube. I don't know what's going to happen after September. We know the stuff on the other platform is changing in September. I feel like it's going to be a significant change. So I'm trying to move myself over to this other platform, to YouTube. So if you're over on YouTube, please give me a follow. If you're on the platform and you're on YouTube, please give me a follow over on YouTube. And I'm a lawyer in real life on YouTube. And thank y'all for the taps. I appreciate if y'all keep tapping. That's how people find the live. And I appreciate you guys over here on YouTube. This is the biggest YouTube live I've ever had. So I appreciate you all coming. Okay, so back to our story. So, she poses the question, Candace poses the question, is this just a coincidence? But she doesn't provide any evidence that it's not more than just a coincidence. But, I can see how she's planting the seeds in people's heads. She's making you wonder what the hell is going on. I mean, this is, it's a lot. So assuming it's true also, assuming this is all true, but she was reading from like something that was published. So to me, it seemed legitimate, what she was reading, that these things actually happen. So what I saw her doing is they had all these transgender, all these PDF things that just kept popping up in Emmanuel Macron's life. And she talks about this other journalist, Sylvia Bernal, who came across little mistakes that Brigitte made in talking about her life. And so again, these are things that makes her suspicious about Brigitte. And so these are, and I'm going to give you the examples that she shared. So Brigitte talked about the death of her sister. I think one of her sisters passed away. Brigitte said that she was 6 years old when her sister passed away, where in reality she was 8 years old. So when the journalist went back, she did the math. She found she was 8 years old. Then she also talks about the death of her niece. And she said, right after my sister died, my niece died a year later. Well, when the journalist, I think it was the Pizarro guy, he went back and he's like, where's this niece that passed away? And he found a burial plot with the niece, but the niece passed away in 1996, which was 6 years after the sister had passed away. So that's a pretty big gap. And they're like, who does that? What person, mixes up their age when their sister passed away? Who mixes up how the time between these two things happening. So for Candace, that's very odd. It's very mysterious. But those were the only two things that she said that, she got mixed up about her personal history, at least in this episode. And then she talks about no one could find her first husband or get through to him. We've already kind of talked about that. And what else did she say? Oh, okay. And I said this earlier, but I'm going to say it again. The journalist found a marriage certificate between Andre Louise and Brigitte Trogno. So there's a legal document. And her brother, Jean-Michel, was the best man in her wedding. But for Candace, again, she thinks it's weird because Jean-Michel allegedly disappears. But maybe Jean-Michel just didn't want to be in the public light. And Candace says that her legal team sent the Macrons a list of 22 questions. And they refused to answer the questions. And one of the questions she says they sent was a question to asking her if the question number 8, I think it was the question that says whether the woman in the wedding photo is Brigitte Macron, and they wouldn't just say yes or no. So, and she said that there was another instance where they also refused to answer this question, and it had to do with the Natasha Ray court case. So Natasha Ray is a French journalist who was sued by Brigitte, as well as the first cousin of Andre Louise. His name is Louis Andre. And Louis Andre sued this journalist, Natasha Ray, because Natasha Ray said he was the man in the wedding photo, not Andre Louise. That turned out not to be accurate. It is not true. And he won that lawsuit. Now, okay, I know y'all gonna start saying, but they're appealing it, all of that stuff. That might be true, but I'm just telling you what happened initially. And according to Candace, the lawsuit was not about whether Brigitte was born a man. It was about whether she got the details of that photo incorrect. I don't know a lot about the French lawsuits, so I don't know. And she also says that Brigitte manipulated Louis Andre, into filing that lawsuit. But Louis Andre, according to Candace, asked her to certify that she was the person in the wedding photo, and she did not. And according to Candace, Xavier Pouzard was able to trace the actual Andre Louise, and he did in fact exist. So we know that there was a real person and there was a real funeral. All of those things actually happen. So I think I've talked about episode 3. So, okay, we've been going a long time. So let me look at the comments and see what's going on. So Geraldo Henderson said, so they wouldn't answer simple questions to clarify, but you think they have a claim for defamation? Very good question. Let me answer that. So that letter with that list of questions was sent to that team after they had sent Candace a 100-page plus letter in December. So on December 3rd, they send Candace a letter, and in their lawsuit, they refer to that as the December retraction letter, because I've actually had handled a defamation case before. And one of the things we did, because under Georgia law, it kind of requires you to do this, we sent the other side a letter and we said, you stated X, it is inaccurate. You have defamed our client and we want you to retract your statement. Then, and in our case, the person agreed to retract the statement. And so we prepared a statement where they said, what I said about X on this date was untrue. And they signed, notarized the retraction. And because they did that, we agreed not to sue them. So they sent Candace a letter that they call a retraction letter. So, and they talk about it in their complaint. They said the Macrons, through counsel, sent a detailed retraction demand letter to Owens via email on December 3rd, 2024. The December retraction demand explained the falsity of Owens's defamatory statements and included an abundance of evidence that Ms. Macron was born a woman named Brigitte Trudeau, that she was not a blood relative of President Macron, and that the Macrons were not being controlled or blackmailed by any group of people. Owens did not respond to the December 3rd email. The reason I believe they didn't respond to her list of questions is because, and they go on to talk about the letter throughout this 200-page complaint. They respond, and their position is that they responded. I think their position is that they responded to everything she was asking in their December 3rd letter. They're like, we ain't answering nothing else. They were only sending her that December 3rd letter to lay the foundation for suing her. And so they sent her that letter. She sent them those list of questions, and they probably felt like they did need to answer them. So that's that December 3rd letter. And then it goes on to say, and y'all remember Candace. Now I saw this video. I watch some of Candace on stuff sometimes, and I saw the video where she talks about President Trump calling her and was like, hey, you know, first she said people from the White House called her about it. Then she said Trump called her. So I know y'all saw that. So I think he was warning her, you know, they're about to sue you, sis. You might need to change up what you're doing. Yes, Deja, Trump tried to warn her. And she didn't take she was like, whatever, sue me. But in the lawsuit, it says Owens then repeatedly ignored multiple additional attempts by the Macrons to engage. The Macrons sent a follow-up email on December 18th, 2024, which went unanswered. So, you know, she's talking about they didn't answer her. They're saying she didn't answer them. On January 8th, 2025, the Macrons contacted Owens' former legal counsel to facilitate communication, but received no response. Next, the Macrons attempted to personally serve the December retraction demand on January 9th, 2025, but were first ignored, then blocked by Owens' counsel, who ultimately agreed to accept service by email. So, you know, they're saying they were trying to get her this information so she could retract what she was saying. The December retraction demand explicitly denied each of Owens' claims and presented evidence that conclusively disproved them. So Geraldo and Henderson, they are saying we gave her the evidence. We answered the questions. You know, we knew what she was saying. So that's what they're saying in their lawsuit. Um, Geraldo Henderson, I think you should look at primary sources so you don't need to guess. But that's what Candace does in her series. So I'm watching her series. Candace is not presenting any primary sources. She's talking about what this journalist says, what this book says. She is hiding behind those people, which honestly is a good strategy for her so she's not sued. But in her series, Candace is not using any primary sources. A primary source, I went to the Department of Vital Statistics and I got the birth certificate. That's not the evidence we're seeing in her series. That's what I want to see. That's what I was thinking I would see, but that's not what I'm seeing. So let's see. Okay, KTV, I hear you. Okay, I'm just looking at what folks are saying in the comments. Why doesn't Candace focus her issues on real world issues? I mean, listen, people can do whatever they want. They can talk about whatever they want. I don't begrudge anybody that, but if you're going to talk about stuff, let's at least be truthful. That's all I got to say. Talk about whatever you want to, but let's not make shit up. Let's keep it truthful. Okay, so going back to the complaint over here, it says the December retraction demand explicitly denied each of Owens's claims and presented evidence that conclusively disproved them. We have not seen that letter, so we don't know. I'm going to reserve judgment because I don't know. I don't know what the letter says. The December retraction demand reminded Owens that the very Daily Mail article she cited as support for her conspiracies told readers that the Courrier Picard, a daily newspaper in Amiens, France, Miss Macron's hometown, included Miss Macron's birth announcement. The birth announcement states that Brigitte Trudeau was born on 13th, 1953, and that her siblings, Anne Marie, Jean Claude, Mary Vaughan, Monique, and Jean-Michel Trudeau have great joy in announcing the arrival of their little sister, Brigitte. That's what it says. Defendants knew this information, but Owens omitted it from her series precisely because it contradicted the preconceived narrative she intended to tell. This omission was deliberate and is evidence of actual malice. So they have to prove that she knew the truth and she ignored the truth. That's actual. That's what actual malice means. What do you think about actual malice? Do you think that part will be proven? That is the difficult part for the Macrons. They have to prove that Candace knew the truth. And she either knew the truth and ignored it, or she acted with reckless disregard for the truth. That she had in front of her a 100-page letter that laid out the truth, and she recklessly disregarded that information. That is a very, very high standard. It is very difficult for public figures, for the president of France. My husband keeps saying, the King of France is suing Candace. I keep saying, not the King of France, sir. But he's like, yeah, the King of France is suing Candace, not the King of France. But it is a very high standard for the president of France to meet. And it's high because he is the president of France. It's high because we want to make it difficult for powerful people, for politicians to silence us. We do not want them to be able to sue us and silence us. So now we have seen recently that President Trump has sued media organizations. They have settled because they wanted to, not because they needed to. Any legal observer will tell you that he was going to lose those cases. ABC, CBS, 60 Minutes, they paid him money because they wanted to, not because they needed to. And there's a good example of what happened recently. Do y'all remember Sarah Palin was sued the New York Times because the New York Times wrote that she had encouraged people to shoot the Congresswoman in Arizona, Gabby, I would say Giffords, but I don't think it's Giffords. She's married to Mark Kelly. So the New York Times, and this happened years ago, and there were actually 2 trials. So Sarah Palin sued the New York Times because they made this defamatory statement about her. The statement they made about Sarah Palin was a lie. She had not said what they attributed to her. It was untruthful. The New York Times, so she sued the New York Times. There was a trial. The first trial, Sarah Palin lost. She appealed. The Court of Appeals sent the case back because the judge had made some errors. So there was a second trial that just happened within the last few months. And so in the second trial, I think at all times, the New York Times said, yes, we made a mistake. We said this about Sarah Palin. It was inaccurate. The editor of the New York Times, who actually made the call to publish this, he testified. He said, I made a mistake. I feel terrible about it. I didn't mean to say this. I realized that it was not truthful, and I, immediately retracted it. And that was their defense, that there was no actual malice, that they did not intend, that they were not ignoring the truth. They were saying we just made a mistake. But Sarah Palin lost for the second time. That was a good enough defense to actual malice because it's a very high standard. So Candace may win this lawsuit. I would not be surprised. I would not be shocked if Candace wins this lawsuit. And Candace may win this lawsuit because of this high burden that the Macrons have. But she may not win on the fact that Brigitte Macron is a man. I think they can. This could be the outcome. Brigitte Macron is not a man, but Candace is not liable for defamation. That is a very possible outcome. All right, so let's look at the comments. Okay, it's me, Felicia. It's me. I 100% agree with you. As I'm watching the series, it is all about the PDF for Candace. It is all about that. And I think it has more to do with religion. And there's a lot of religious stuff that's going on. And I think that's what it has to do with. Marcus Aiken says, I predict Candace will lose the lawsuit. You call the lady a man and she is liable, guilty. Possible, but remember, they have to show that she acted with actual malice. And Deja, you're talking about page 87 of the lawsuit. Let me check this out. I've appreciated Deja's comments tonight. So guys, I'm about to wrap up. If you have not given me a follow, please give me a follow. I'm trying to, especially over here on the YouTube, I'm trying to ease my way over there. I don't know what's going to happen in September on the other side. So I'm just trying to make sure y'all can find me. Page 87 of the lawsuit. I think that's what Deja is talking about. Owens has openly demonstrated her ill will and retaliatory intent toward the Macrons, further evidencing actual malice. In interviews with multiple podcasters, Owens admitted that she initially intended to release only a single episode of the series. However, Upon receiving the December retraction demand, which directly refuted her false claims, Owens responded by reassessing the accuracy of her reportings, but she escalated her defamatory campaign. She stated, now we're doing a whole series because how dare you? Okay, she was like, I'm tripling, quadrupling down. She says the series was motivated by personal animus rather than any legitimate journalistic purpose. She further warned that if the Macrons were to contact her again regarding her false accusations, she would retaliate by producing a second season. These statements reflect a deliberate intent to harm, not a good faith effort to report the truth. So you see how they're building their case. John says, are people seriously asking why does it matter? No, John, we are seriously asking that we know what happened at the beginning of their relationship. We know how it's initiated. But we also know that in his 20s, he chose to marry this woman. And he is the freaking president of France. So it's hard to convince me that the president of France is being manipulated by his 70-year-old wife. Maybe that's true. I don't know. It says Owens intentionally disregarded key sources that have forcefully, publicly, and repeatedly debunked her dubious claims. Owens admitted that she reviewed reliable sources debunking the conspiracy. Indeed, Owens learned about the allegation from the 2021 Daily Mail debunking article. The article provided substantial evidence of the probable falsity of the allegations. Owens also received 3 retraction demand letters from the Macrons. She received 3 retraction demand letters, which explicitly stated that her claims were false and included evidence to support this. Owens intentionally disregarded these sources in favor of her preconceived narrative is evidence of actual malice. All right, guys, so I will be back maybe tomorrow to continue this conversation because I want to watch maybe 4, 5, and 6 before I come back. And then, so I want to come back and talk about the rest of the series. I'm going to see this through. I'm going to watch it to the end so that at the end of the day, I can have a clear idea of everything that has been presented. And I have an open mind. I mean, I'm ready. If I see if in episode 4, 5, and 6 she comes with the evidence, I'm going to say Candace got the proof. So we will see. But guys, I'm about to sign off. Thank you all for sharing your time with me tonight. So if you don't follow me, please give me a follow and please come back to my lives. So I'll see you later. All right, guys. Good night. I'll see you later.